What's up guys, this is Massey. Welcome to another video. In this video I want to show you how to do trigonometric limits. Whenever we have limit of sine x over x when x approaches 0, the answer is going to be 1. We have the same thing when we have x over sine x, and when x approaches 0, the limit is going to be 1. Now imagine if you have limit of sine x over 5x when x is approaching 0. In that case, you're gonna say, you take 5 out, you have sine x over x when x is approaching 0. So the answer is gonna be 1 over 5 times 1, which is gonna be 1 over 5. Whenever we have limit of 1 minus cosine x over x when x approaches 0, the answer is gonna be 0. And whenever you have limit of tan x over x when x is approaching 0, you can say that's going to be equal to limit of tan is sine over cosine over x. So that's going to be limit of sine x over x times 1 over cosine x when x is approaching 0. That's going to be 1 times 1, and the answer is going to be 1. Next one, it says limit of sine 4x over x when x is approaching 0. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to multiply both numerator and denominator by 4, and that's going to be limit of 4x over 4x when x is approaching 0 multiplied by 4. That's sine 4x over 4x times 4. So that's 1 times 4, and the answer is going to be 4. Next one, you have limit of 3 times 1 minus cosine x over x when x is approaching 0. The answer is going to be 3 times 0, which is going to be 0. Next one is limit of sine x times 1 minus cosine x over x squared when x is approaching 0. You can write it as limit of sine x over x times 1 minus cosine x over x when x is approaching 0. This one is going to be 1. This part is going to be 0. 1 times 0, the answer is going to be 0. Next one, limit of cosine x times sine theta over theta when theta is approaching 0. We know cosine theta times tan theta is going to be equal to sine. So we can say that's going to be equal to limit of sine theta over theta when theta is going towards 0. The answer is going to be 1. Next one, limit of sine squared x over x when x is approaching 0. I'm going to say that's going to be sine x over x times sine x. The answer is going to be 1 times sine 0, which is going to be 0. Next one is limit of tan squared x over x when x is approaching 0. The answer is going to be tan x over x times tan x. This part is 1. Tan 0 is going to be 0. So the answer is going to be 0. Next one, limit of 2x over sine 3x. So sine 2x over sine 3x when x is approaching 0. You're going to say you multiply both numerator and denominator by 2x over 2x, 3x over 3x, which is going to give it to me as sine 2x over 2x, 3x over sine 3x, and that's going to be 2x over 3x, which is going to be 2 over 3 when x is approaching 0. Next one, limit of square root of 2x over sine square root of 2x when x is approaching 0. And since here we have square root of 2x and here we have sine square root of 2x, the answer is going to be 1. Now here you have limit of sine 4x over 3x when x is approaching 0. You can say that's going to be sine 4x over 3x multiplied by 4x over 4x when x is approaching 0. It's going to be limit of sine 4x over 4x, and here you have 4x over 3x when x is approaching 0. That's going to make it as 4 over 3. Next one, limit of tan 4 theta over theta. We're going to say you multiply numerator and denominator by 4. It is going to make it as tan 4 theta over 4 theta times 4. When theta is approaching 0, the answer is going to be 4. Next one, limit of tan 5 theta over sine 3 theta when theta is approaching 0. You will say that you multiply both numerator and denominator by 5 theta and also 3 theta when theta is approaching 0. So it's going to be limit of tan 5 theta over 5 theta times 3 theta over sine 3 theta equals to 5 theta over 3 theta. The answer is going to be 5 over 3 when theta is approaching 0. Next one is limit of sine 4x over x when x is approaching 0. So that's easy. You just multiply both numerator and denominator by 4. The answer is going to be 1 times 4, which is going to be 4. Next one, 4 sine x over 4x. Sine x over x is going to be 1. 4 divided by 4 is going to be 1. So the limit is going to be 1. Limit of sine 4x over 4x when x is approaching 0 is going to be equal to 1. And here we have limit of sine x over 4x when x is approaching 0. You're going to say that you take 1 over 4 out. Sine x over x when x is approaching 0 is going to be 1 over 4 times 1, which is going to be 1 over 4. Here you have limit of 1 minus cosine 2x over x when x is approaching 0 is going to be 1 minus cosine 2x over 2x times 2 when x is approaching 0. This part is going to be 0. 0 times 2 is going to be 0. Next one is going to be limit of sine 3x times 1 minus cosine x over x when x is approaching 0. The answer is going to be limit of 1 minus cosine x over x times sine 3x when x is approaching 0. This part is going to be by itself equals to 0. So 0 times any number is going to be 0. Here you have limit of 1 minus cosine x over sine x, which if I multiply both numerator and denominator by x, it is going to be 1 minus cosine x over x times x over sine x, which is going to be equal to 1. Next one is going to be limit of 1 minus cosine x, cosine 3x over 5x. Well, I multiply the numerator and denominator by 3x and 5x. It is going to be 3x, 3x, 5x, and that's it. We just multiplied that by 3x. So it's going to be 0 times 3 over 5, which is going to be 0. Limit of sine 3x sine 5x over x sine 2x is going to be 3 times 5 over 2, which is going to be 15 over 2. sine 8x, sine 3x over sine 2x and sine 5x. So that you can write it as sine 8x over 8x times 8x sine 3x over 3x times 3x times 2x over sine 2x times 1 over 2x times sine 5x over 5x times, actually that has to be in the denominator and 5x in the numerator. So the answer is going to be like the previous example, is going to be 8 times 3 over 2 times 5, which is going to be 24 over 10. When you reduce it, it's going to be 12 over 5. That's going to be the final answer. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to subscribe this channel. You can have access to many other videos regarding limits and other topics in math, calculus, physics, and chemistry. Thank you for watching and have a great day.